Kimberly and Deanna are going to do a little networking exercise as they introduce each other. So take it away, ladies.
Hi, how are you?
Good, and you?
Well, I'm great now. After a long day of sessions, this reception is just what I needed to unwind. By the way, my name is Deanna Ratnikova.
Hi, Deanna. I'm Kim Short. What brings you to the meeting?
Well, I work with the American Physical Society, APS. I provide administrative support to the education department, and I also help with the Women in Physics program. What brings you to the meeting?
Well, I'm presenting my research. I'm a grad student at UCLA working with nanoparticles.
Oh, it's really interesting. That sounds like condensed matter physics, am I right?
Yeah, that's right.
I'm not especially familiar with condensed matter, so could you tell me, like in simple terms, what you're working on?
Well, our particular project, we're trying to do nano architecture. We're constructing small structures, and we're using tiny particles on the order of microns to nanometers. To do this, we're just building small structures for many, many applications in engineering and chemistry.
Oh, very cool. Thanks for breaking it down for me.
No problem. I'm glad I ran into you. I've been wanting to get more involved in the efforts of the Committee on the Status of Women in Physics, but I don't know if there are any ways I could volunteer my time.
Oh, definitely. The committee could really benefit from the insight of a grad student. Let me give you my business card. My email's on there, so please send me some more information about yourself and your interest with working with the committee, and then I'll put you into contact with the committee chair, and we'll find a way for you to be involved.
Oh, great. Thank you so much.
Well, it was a pleasure meeting you, and I look forward to hearing from you.
Thank you. Enjoy the rest of the meeting.
Hello, everyone. As Crystal mentioned, Kimberly and I decided to change things up a bit and introduce ourselves via the networking scenario you just heard. I'm Deanna Ratnikova. I'll be your speaker for today's webinar, and Kimberly Short is your moderator. Before Kimberly and I continue the presentation, please complete a poll to tell us more about yourself. Kimberly, will you launch that poll?
Yes.
We'd like to know if you've attended an APS meeting before. If you have, please indicate how many meetings you've been to. So while you're answering the poll, I'm going to share with you my goals for today's webinar. First, I want to show you that networking can be easy. Now, I can't see your faces right this moment, but I'm guessing some of y'all are giving me that look like, yeah, right, networking is easy. And my answer is yes, it can be. And I'm here to discuss networking etiquette and strategies that'll help you convince people you're someone they want to meet and someone they want to stay in touch with. Kimberly and I will also provide you with more networking scenarios, similar to what you just heard, to help you visualize the experience and persuade yourself that you can do this too. My second goal today is that I want you to leave with the mindset that networking is as much about helping other people as it is about helping yourself. Networking is one of the most powerful tools for advancing your career, but if you really want to see results, you've got to provide value to people. Kimberly, let's close the poll after my countdown. Everyone, please answer if you haven't already. The poll is closing in 4, 3, 2, 1. Thank you to those who participated. Kimberly, what did our polls tell us?
Well, it looks like most of the attendees have been to an APS meeting. About 80% have been to a meeting before. And even,
right.
Yeah, so yeah, and about 50% have been to 3 or more meetings. So yeah, it looks pretty good.
Well, I hope we can really provide our listeners today with more tips to help you get more out of the meetings. So what are some of our goals for networking? Well, building contacts is the most common one, but that's not about going up to someone, giving them your 30-second pitch, which we're going to talk about shortly, and then asking to exchange business cards. Sure, if you got their business card, you've got their contact information, but making a contact is different than building a contact. To build a contact, you need to do several other things, such as exchange expertise and insights. I know that a lot of students registered for our webinar today, so you may be telling yourself, I'm just a student. What kind of expertise can I offer an industry professional or a tenured professor? Well, a lot. You are the next generation of scientists, and you may have insights on how older generations could do things differently utilizing new technology. Or you may have ideas about how they could more effectively communicate to younger audiences or the general public. And you know what, most of all, you can be complimentary. Everyone loves a compliment, and if it's genuine and shows that you were really listening to what the other person had to say, a compliment and a thoughtful comment or suggestion on their talk or research will really go a long way. Another goal is to listen and learn. Most people enjoy talking about themselves and their job or research. I want you to make sure that you are listening as much as you're talking. Ask lots of open questions: who, what, when, how, and take a genuine interest in people. We're going to talk later in the webinar about some talking tips to keep in mind when you're one-on-one with someone and also when you're in a group setting. Lastly, networking is a great way to develop and improve your communication skills. If you're a naturally shy or quiet person, you probably have issues with public speaking. And meeting new people is going to be the last situation you want to put yourself in. But if you make that effort, you should find that the more you practice meeting new people, starting, keeping up conversations, the easier it's going to be for you to speak in front of an audience. Okay, now that we've identified some goals of networking, let's get you into the networking mindset. Kimberly, do you recognize this quote I've got on the screen?
Yes, John F. Kennedy's inaugural address.
Ding, 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 you're right. Okay, folks, this is what I want you to think of when you network. Ask not what this person can do for you. Ask what you can do for this person. Networking is about building professional relationships. And just as with any relationship, it's a two-way street. When you meet a new person at a conference and decide that you want to get to know this person and make a professional connection, I want you to think as much, if not more, how can I help this person, rather than how can they help you. It's really great if they can help you out as well, but your ultimate goal should be to help others. After you've provided value to that person, then you can start thinking about whether and when it's appropriate to ask for favors and career advice. So before the meeting, one of the first things you should do when preparing to network at an APS meeting is prepare your pitch. I call it a 30-second pitch because that's the approximate amount of time that you have until you lose a person's attention. You may have also heard an elevator speech. In your pitch, you want to address your name, employer or university, role, expertise, interest, or goals. Kimberly, would you mind sharing with us your pitch so that we can see how to tie all of these pieces together for a nice flowing introduction?
Sure. Hi,
okay,
I'm Kimberly.
Go ahead. Sorry.
Hi, I'm Kimberly Short, a graduate student at UCLA studying condensed matter physics. Specifically, I'm researching correlation functions in nanoparticles, and I'm here today to learn more about industrial careers in condensed matter physics.
Great job. Folks, as you may have noticed, Kimberly used portions of her 30-second pitch during the networking scenario at the beginning of the webinar. At meetings, you're going to have both the opportunity to give your pitch in its entirety, like Kimberly just did, or break it up into small parts to keep a conversation going. So practice your pitch. Let me repeat. Practice, practice, practice. If you want to get someone's attention, you need to be able to speak with confidence about what you do. And oftentimes we think that just because we do something every day that we understand what it is we do. The problem, however, is that you probably don't put it into words very often, especially 50 words or less. So practice talking about what you do so it comes naturally when you're at one of the meetings and you're networking. Furthermore, you may want to create two versions, one with more technical terms and details for your expertise and interests, and one with more simplified terms. You may even want to create a list of different goals and interests, and then depending on who you're talking to, pull one or two items from that list. The second thing you want to do before going to a meeting is to make a networking plan. If you have near future career plans, then you probably have an idea of who you'd like to meet or what type of careers you'd like to focus on. It's definitely easier to find who you're looking for if, one, you know who they are, and two, where they may be at the meeting. If you're attending the APS meeting, we have a wonderful resource called the APS Meeting Program, or the Bulletin of the American Physical Society. I'm going to provide links to it later in the presentation. Look at this and create a schedule of talks or events that you want to attend on purpose. But don't stress yourself out over meeting that particular person. You're going to get tunnel vision and lose sight of the whole purpose of the meeting, which is to just meet anyone. So let me tell you a story to illustrate an important point. I went to the library the other day to pick up a particular book. After finding that book, I just briefly scanned the shelf to see what other books were near it. And would you believe I found 3 other relevant books that ended up being even better than the book I was actually there to get in the first place. So my point is, when you go to a talk to see a particular person speak, realize that others there at that talk may be just as valuable connections. So like I said, don't get tunnel vision at the meetings. Even if you're planning calls for meeting certain people, leave some room for chance and unexpected opportunities. Now before we move on, some optional preparation pieces you may want to consider are business cards and a padfolio. Business cards provide you with something to give someone should they ask to stay in touch with you. Business cards are fairly affordable to purchase now, so there's no reason not to have some handy if you're going to attend a meeting as large as those of the APS meetings. And if you're a junior member, ask the membership department about how you can get your own free business card. A padfolio is also very handy. It's a sturdy folder, usually with a notepad inside, a place to hold a pen, and a place for business cards or other paperwork. If you're not going to be carrying around a laptop at all times, a padfolio is something really helpful to have at APS meetings. Before we discuss and practice more networking scenarios, I'm going to throw a few tips out there. First things first, it's better to not go for a contact than to go for one and be insincere. The other person will sniff out your insincerity immediately. And let me tell you, it takes longer to rebound from a bad impression than it does to build the relationship in the first place. So if you even think that you may not be feeling it, rethink your action. And if you're wondering what I mean by being insincere, here's a quick example. Imagine you're a grad student searching for postdoc opportunities. A professor that you'd like to work with for your postdoc is giving a talk at the meeting. Unfortunately, it's scheduled right before your session when you're presenting. So while the professor is talking, your mind is actually on your presentation that you've got to give in an hour, and you're really only halfway listening to that professor. After the talk, you go up to the professor because you want to build a connection with him or her, and you give the generic conversation starter. Dr. Short, great presentation. I really enjoyed it. My name is Deanna Ratnikova. Now, what are you going to do if they come back with, well, it's nice to meet you, Deanna. What part of my talk in particular did you enjoy? If you weren't really listening, you're going to probably fumble over your words while replying, or you may not be able to come up with a reply at all. And you likely made a bad impression, and you're going to have to work extra hard to make up for it if you want that postdoc position. So trust me on this one. If you have any doubts about a networking opportunity, maybe you had a bad day, or like the example I give, you weren't really listening to the talk. In these situations, it's just best not to risk making a bad impression. If it's meant to be, there's going to be other opportunities for you to connect. Another no-no is to let your eyes wander around the room when you're speaking with someone one-on-one. If someone's giving you your time to talk to you, you want to make them feel that they are the only person in that room. If you're looking around and wondering while they're talking, they're going to think you're looking for someone else more important to talk to, or that you just don't really care what they have to say. Try to look into their eyes and really give them your full-hearted attention. I know that some people find it uncomfortable to look at someone in the face or eyes for extended periods of time. And if this applies to you, try taking some notes on what they're saying. That's where a padfolio would be helpful to have. Or briefly look at the floor from time to time. Don't stare at the floor, but you can look at it occasionally to give yourself a break from their face or eyes. Another body language tip is to give a person a little space. I know it can get noisy at APS meetings, and you need to get closer to hear that person if they're not talking loud enough. Instead of approaching them head on, try to approach them from the side, like shoulder to shoulder, so that you're not making the person feel uncomfortable. Your presence and appearance is going to play a big role in whether others come and approach you to talk or continue a conversation with you. Like I just said with, it gets noisy at meetings, make sure that you're speaking loud enough so that others can hear you, because more often than not, A person will not bother to continually ask you to repeat yourself. Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't hear you. Can you say that again? They're not going to bother with that. They're just going to find an excuse to end the conversation because they're tired of straining to hear you. And also, speaking too softly can often be construed as that you lack confidence in what you're saying or that you don't believe in yourself. So talk loud and make sure they can hear you. Another confidence booster is standing upright and tall. I know it's hard for the tall people out there. You often hunch over so you can come to another person's level. But really try it. Try standing upright and tall even when you're talking to others. It really portrays confidence and that you believe in yourself. And I know that when I see someone who's got great posture and shows a great personality, I want to approach them and find out, what are they so happy about? Why are they so confident? And let me just reiterate, we can never underestimate having a pleasant persona, nice smiles, just nice personality. If you're unhappy or nervous, you better believe that that's going to show through and it's going to be visible to others. Now, nervousness may not scare someone away, but if you want someone to think you'd be a good contribution to their lab or company, you want to exude confidence, not nervousness. And if you've had a bad day, possibly your talk didn't go as planned, or you had some super tough questions that just keep replaying in your head like, oh, I could have answered this better, just let it go. It's going to show if that's what you're thinking about. So when you go to a networking event and try to start a conversation with someone after a session, on those situations, just leave the woes of your day behind. Be positive because people like a positive person. And let me give a quick note on business cards. While giving business cards is important, exchanging them without first building trust is often non-productive. So if you leave an event with 20 or 30 cards, chances are you might not be able to match those to the corresponding owner's face. And then you won't be able to remember well what you were talking about. That's going to make it really difficult to follow up. We'll talk about following up later. And so I suggest exchange business cards only after you've made a concrete connection or if they offer to give you their cards first. Okay, let's get to the good stuff, which is networking scenarios to help you visualize the experience. Kimberly is going to help me play out a couple of the scenarios, and then I'll discuss the rest. So when you're at a meeting, one of the most conventional places you expect to network is after research presentations. So the first scenario that Kimberly and I are going to do is that Kimberly is a big-name physicist, and she just gave a talk, and I'm a student interested in speaking with her. Kimberly, are you ready?
Yes, I'm ready.
Good. Hello, Dr. Short. I really enjoyed your talk. I have one item that I'd like to briefly discuss with you. It should only take a minute. Do you have time right now to talk?
I'd love to, but I have a meeting to go to. Did you get my email address from the presentation?
Yes, I did. I wrote it down.
Very good. Just email me your question, and I'll get back to you when I have time.
Okay, thank you very much. Well, folks, that didn't go as I had planned. I really wanted to build a connection with her. But you know what I'm going to do instead? I'm going to email her as soon as possible. You can't take these situations personally and tell yourself that Dr. Short didn't like me or she just didn't want to give time to me. You know what? It's not something you said. It's probably because people are just busy, and situations like this are all about timing. If you catch someone at a good time, they'll probably happily talk to you or meet with you. If they're swamped, however, a simple, no, I don't have time right now, may be all that you get. Do not take it personally and do not get upset. Just follow up with the person if that's what you promised to do and hope that they get back to you quickly. Be sure, though, that when you send the email following up with them, that you introduce yourself again and remind him or her that you spoke to them briefly after his or her talk. So, Kimberly, let's try it again. Hopefully you'll have some time for me. So as a reminder, everyone, Kimberly's a physicist. She just gave a talk, and I'm a student who's interested in speaking with her. Hello, Dr. Short. I really enjoyed your talk. I have one item that I'd like to briefly discuss with you. It should only take a minute. Do you have time now to talk?
Sure. Let's step outside into the main hallway. I think they want to set up for the next session here.
Okay, sure. So I'm working on my PhD in chemistry, and I'm very interested in nanoparticles. So I'm considering moving to physics research for the next stage of my career. I know that you work on nanoparticles, so could you please tell me if you believe a chemistry background could be useful to research like what you're doing?
Oh, no, it's certainly useful. Actually, our team has a project for a chemist. The particles that we're working with are extremely rigid, and we're looking at finding some substances or some way of making them more flexible. So we definitely have something for a chemist to do.
Great. Thanks for answering my question.
I'm glad I could help. It was a good question. I'll clarify that later. Let's see. Oh, I see that your bachelor's is the University of Arizona. I went there for my bachelor's degree. When do you plan to graduate?
Well, I'm a fourth-year grad student, and I hope to finish by next summer and then move on to a postdoc position.
Oh, good luck with that. We're always looking for high-quality postdocs at UCLA, so consider us when the time comes.
Definitely. I'd love to work at UCLA. Well, thank you again for taking the time to talk with me.
Don't mention it. Enjoy the meeting.
So everyone, in this scenario, I shared my goals when the opportunity arose. You may not get that opportunity in your first meeting, but if the chance arises and it feels natural, let them know. In my opinion, however, it's not really appropriate to do more than state your goals. For example, I wouldn't have said, I hope to finish my PhD by next summer and then move on to a postdoc position. Will you have any openings in your lab at that time? I haven't really established a good enough relationship with Dr. Short, so she may think that the only reason I asked the question about her research was just because I want to get into her lab and do postdoc. However, I suggest that if you're able to stay in touch and in connection with that professor over a period of time, then you can start thinking about whether and when it's appropriate to ask about career opportunities. Meals and reception-style events are another conventional place that we expect to network at a meeting. Let's imagine that you're attending the event on your own. How do you meet new people? Well, the easiest way to break the ice at a networking event is to strike up a conversation with the first person you make eye contact with, or with the first small group of people you come upon. If you're a really shy person, try searching the room for another person who also looks like they're on their own, because shy people usually find it easier to talk to one person at a time rather than a group of people. So when you identify someone that you want to approach, walk up, smile, catch their eye, and then start a conversation. It's as simple as that. And you know what's even more simple? The best opener. It's just, hi, how are you? Try to introduce yourself, your company, or your affiliation early on in the conversation. But then don't get bogged down with too many personal or professional details. Focus instead on remembering the other person's name, asking questions like, what is your line of work? Why are you at the meeting? And just find any other similarities that you can share that you can talk about. If you're attending the meeting with colleagues, chances are you will also attend the networking events with your colleagues. And I notice that when I attend events with people I know, I meet significantly less people. And here's why. We feel more comfortable talking to people we know than to strangers. But the problem is the people that you know are already in your network, and you're wasting the opportunity to meet new people. So if you and your friends or colleagues want to network while at an event together, first of all, watch your stances. People in groups of familiarity often stand in symmetric positions, which make it more intimidating for an outsider to approach the group. Feel free to stand beside each other, but think semicircle instead of a circle, so others know that they're welcome to approach your group and start a conversation. And if and when someone new approaches your group, be careful about naming other colleagues an inside joke. That's a surefire way to make someone feel like an outsider and to make them feel not welcome to the group. Lastly, be prepared for the unexpected opportunities to meet people. If you're early to a session, instead of searching for a wide open area that you can take over and conquer, try sitting near someone else who's also early. Being early may be a sign that they're as excited about the session as you are. And if they're not obsessed with their laptop, smartphone, paperwork, try and start a conversation. Here's a sample opener. Do you mind if I sit here, or do you have other colleagues coming to this talk? If that one doesn't work for you, try this one. Do you have a specific talk you're here to listen to? Try something just to get a conversation started. And for me, I've noticed that I often start conversations in the food or coffee lines. Many of you mentioned that you've been to an APS meeting before, and if that's the case, you know that lines for food and coffee at the convention center can get super long. You can be there for 30 to 40 minutes. So try striking up a conversation with the person behind or in front of you if they're not busy doing something else. Small talk works. Talk about the weather, the size of the meeting, anything. Just try striking up a conversation and see where it takes you. No matter how much you network at a meeting, it could all be for naught if you don't follow up and keep the conversation going. 1 or 2 days after meeting someone for the first time, follow up with a brief email or note. Use the follow-up to extend the conversation. Remind them of what you were talking about and provide them with new information, be it an article if you're talking about research, or maybe an example of your work if you're talking about your research. I've even met people before, and we discussed traveling to Russia, and so when I saw that United had a nice sale on round-trip flights from Dulles to Moscow, I sent them a note letting them know. Do anything just to follow up and keep the conversation going. Make sure that you're following up with relevant conversation so it helps jog their memory of the previous interaction, and it displays more personality than just sending a message that says, hey, thanks for talking to me at the meeting. If you're going to connect with your new connection via email, split the message into smaller segments because hardly anyone has the time or attention span to read a super long email. So keep it fairly brief, and if necessary, you can send further details to them after they reply back. But folks, keep in mind, email is easy to send, and it's also really easy to ignore. But don't take it personal. It's probably just a matter of timing. Give them a few weeks, and if you don't hear a response, there's nothing wrong with being persistent. Sometimes a reminder, email, or just switching up your communication method is all that you need to do. So don't be afraid to pick up the phone or arrange a face-to-face meeting if you live near each other or you're going to be in that person's town for a visit. One thing we often neglect to follow up with is others in our organization who also attended the meeting. Make sure, however, that before the meeting you're regularly communicating with colleagues and advisors so they know what your goals and interests are. This will help them know what to be looking for when they're looking out for you. After the meeting, ask your advisor and colleagues if they met anyone or heard about an opportunity at the APS meeting that is relevant to your goals and interests. And be sure to tell them about any opportunities relevant to them that you found out about. As I mentioned earlier, provide value to other people, and they'll start doing the same for you. Lastly, try connecting to people on LinkedIn. LinkedIn is a business-related social networking site that allows you to essentially post your CV as your profile. You connect to people just as you would friend someone on Facebook. You can join interest groups like APS Physics, and this will help you identify people you may be interested in connecting to, even if you haven't met them in person yet. And if you're only able to speak to someone briefly, like a minute or two at the APS meeting, you can try to connect to them on LinkedIn. Use this sample message when you ask to connect. Dr. Short, we spoke briefly at the APS March meeting about your research. I'm very interested in learning more and would like to add you to my network on LinkedIn. It's as simple as that. You ask to connect, give a brief message, and then you're connected, and you can start sending messages to each other. So I have a few homework assignments for everyone. If you're going to be coming to one of our APS spring meetings, we call them APS March and April meetings, first things I'd like to do is check out the events page. The events page tells you about receptions, like the diversity and networking reception and other meals. It also tells you about Future of Physics Days and the Student Awards reception where you can come and network with both undergraduates and graduates. It's going to tell you about all kinds of events that you can come to, the career fair, just everything. I can't speak enough about this page. It's really useful. We also have the meeting program, or the bulletin of the American Physical Society. This is where you're going to find all of the talks, invited sessions. You can search for author names, invited speakers. You can search by looking at abstracts. It's really useful tool, and also it has what's called My Scheduler, which will help you make a networking plan or a networking schedule of what talks you want to go to, and also even personal meetings and things. Very helpful tool from APS. Lastly, please connect with the American Physical Society, APS. We're here to help you meet other people, meet other physicists, and make a connection. Join us on LinkedIn at APS Physics. We have subgroups for women and minorities that's growing quickly. If you're a student or early career physicist, check out the forum on Graduate Student Affairs. Kimberly's a member, and actually her relationship with FGSA is how she got to meet me and the other people. So it's a very valuable tool. APS is on Facebook, Twitter, Google+, and we also have blogs that you can go to and you can contribute to them. And who knows, maybe if you're a great contributor, they'll ask you to do a special feature. And as Crystal mentioned earlier, we have a wonderful webinar. So I know a lot of people with us today have been to an APS meeting, but if you haven't, I really encourage you to check out the webinar next week. Kimberly, I'm going to turn it back over to you.
Okay, well, it looks like it's time for question and answers. We have some questions, so let's see. Let me go to the first question. Oh, okay. How do you deal with rejection?
Oh, well, rejection's hard to deal with. And also, in addition to rejection, you sometimes have rude people. It's not common, but it does happen. In both of those scenarios, you can leave a little flustered and you feel discouraged because, you got your hopes up that you're going to get to talk to someone. For me, I usually just take maybe 1 or 2 minutes, maybe go check out the food area or get another drink. Just try to shake it off. And I remind myself that I'm here to meet people and I can't let this one little thing get me down. I know it's really hard because sometimes it just like shatters your dream if this was someone you really want to talk to. But you got to realize you're only at at that APS meeting for maybe 3 or 4 days. So you got to make it count.
Okay, let's see. Another question. Okay, are there specific pieces of networking advice that you could give to students looking for jobs in industry?
Sure. Well, a difficult thing about industry compared to academia is that with academia, you can go to the school's website and easily find the professor, their research, and their contact information. With industry, it's sometimes really hard. You can't find who's in what division and their contact information. So that's where LinkedIn is very helpful.
Okay. Deanna, are you still there?
It appears that we have lost Deanna on the audio. Again, many apologies for the issues with the audio. I'm not entirely sure what is going on, but I believe that she will be able to join us shortly. She's working on dialing back in. Well, I can say a few words about. Okay.
No, I was going to suggest that people can continue to type in questions because I can still read them as they're submitting them.
Yes. Oh, Deanna's back.
Hi, I'm back.
Hi, Deanna.
Difficulties are the theme for today's webinar.
They certainly are. All right, I'll let you guys take it from here.
Oh, okay. So we were talking about industry. So that's where LinkedIn is really helpful because you can search for people on LinkedIn and it'll show where they're working. Like it'll say IBM or it'll name their small business startup. So look for people on our APS Physics group who are a member because that means they want to get connected to other people. And also you see people at the meetings. We have the Forum on Industrial and Applied Physics. We have events specifically for people in industry. So please check out those. There's really a lot of opportunities. You just got to get out there and really search for it and talk to people.
Okay, so here's another question submitted to us. So do you have recommendations for those of us finishing our bachelor's degrees in physics who want to take a year or so off before going to grad school? So particularly those of us looking to work in science communications with APS, WIP, or other organizing bodies. Well, the most important thing that if you're going to take a year off is you want to stay in contact
with people who would provide you recommendations for jobs. Because I'm assuming you want to take a year off and then either go to grad school or get a job. So that's an important thing of just maybe every 3 months finding some reason to contact someone who would be a recommendation or someone who would be a connection to a job. One thing that I know my husband does is he goes to SkyFinder. And if you want to stay in touch with someone, a quick thing to do is put their name into SkyFinder and get automatic updates for whenever that person publishes a paper. And then that's the easy way is when you see, oh, they published a paper, just send them a congratulatory email saying, you know, great job on getting that paper published. It was very interesting, give them, you know, some feedback on it. And just stay in contact over short periods of time so that they remember you. That way when it comes time you say, I want to start working or I want to go back to grad school, you can get a recommendation from someone.
I think that's great advice. Because I also took time off between grad school or undergrad and grad school, and I actually did not follow that advice. And then when it came time to get letters of recommendation, somebody, you know, one of my professors was on sabbatical, another one was working in Antarctica, and it became a nightmare trying to, because if I had stayed in touch, I wouldn't have had those issues. Okay, another question. Yeah. Is it appropriate to attend an APS meeting if you're not presenting material?
Yes, most definitely. I'm not presenting any material. I'm going to an APS meeting. Of course, I'm not the same scenario because I work with APS. But there's so many events that you can go to just to talk to people and get to know them. And I think there's quite a few people. I mean, I hear that there's like 10,000 people estimated coming to the March meeting, and I'm pretty sure we don't have like 10,000 abstracts. So it's definitely beneficial to come, go to some meals and receptions, just talk to people. There's nothing wrong with just coming to a meeting to get to know people and hear about what's going on in the field.
Okay, another question. Are there specific pieces of advice you would give to foreign students who are trying to find employment here in the United States?
Definitely. So a big piece of being a foreign student is whether or not the place you want to work is going to sponsor you for a work visa. So one of the tools that I know of some fellow grad students who are foreigners, they talk to their professors back home in their home country and say, do you know anyone who is in the States working or studying? And then they get that person's email and they talk to them and find out how did you get to the position you're at. If it's an industry position, like, you know, how did you get that employer to sponsor you? How did it come up in the job discussion or the interview? Talk to people from your home country or other foreigners that you know. They're going to probably be working at places that are very friendly to foreign students and welcome, you know, the whole immigration and visa process. So that's a big thing I do is talk to your colleagues in your home country and find out who else is in the States.
Okay, let me read through some more of these. Oh, yeah, so could you reiterate some of the APS resources you have for networking for students?
For students, definitely. So we have the Future of Physics Days. We call it FPD. We have student lounges where you can go and have some snacks and drinks. That's where you can pick up a really cool T-shirt. So you're going to find other students at that event. We have, for undergraduates, the mentor and student welcome reception. And for graduate students, we have a lunch with the experts. For both undergrad and grad, it's the award session, but it's also a networking reception where there's going to be people from grad schools and also employers. If you're a student who's looking for a job, you can sign up for the career fair, post your resume, and hopefully get an interview with someone. And then there's the grad school fair if that's the next stage in your career. If you don't want to go directly into work, but you want to do a graduate degree, you can do that. And students are always welcome at other events at the APS meeting. You don't have to go only to the events where students are going to be, even though I know it's much easier to network with students because they're their peers than, you know, older, more professional physicists. So, you know, go anywhere and see what happens. You don't have to just go to the student events, but we do have a lot for students.
Okay, so this is a very interesting question. I don't think I've had one like this before. It sounds like a mother wants to bring a 3-month daughter to an APS meeting, but the baby's still nursing, and she wants to know, I guess, how to address like the nursing issue, and will it be awkward if people see my baby as I'm trying to network? So related to having a child at the APS meeting and specifically breastfeeding.
Great question. So first I'd like to do a little pitch for our meeting child care grant. So if you're bringing your child with you and you're going to incur extra costs for having your child with you or for leaving it at home, we have child care grants to help you with those costs, because we know that coming to meetings is really important for your career. You get to meet a lot of people, learn about the new research. So we have the child care grant. And because I work with the child care grants, I can tell you that there are several APS members who do bring their child with them, especially if they're still nursing. And I've actually seen families with children at networking events. It's not common, but you do see them. And I really believe that once you get into the physics community and start talking to people, they're very open to families, because a lot of them have families, and they understand that people bring their child with them, and your family is just as important as your physics research. And we have quiet rooms at the meeting where you can go and be with your child if you need to nurse, or if they just need time to take a little nap because they've been running around the expo. You're welcome to bring your child, and I think most people will be receptive to the fact that you're working hard to stay in touch with the community and meet new people while also being a parent.
Okay, thank you for that. That's some very specific advice, good advice. So we have another question. How do you maintain both a personal and professional relationship with contacts? I know you'd alluded to this before.
Yeah, well, I mean, sometimes when you're networking with someone, your personal, I guess, interests come out, and that's where you find your similarities. And sometimes it's your professional interest that is really where your similarities lie. I think it's fine to share with people your personal interest or, things about your family. You just want to make sure you're also always discussing with them, what are your interests and goals in terms of your career, and also, ask them about their career so that they know you're interested in what they're doing. So just keep an even balance of talking about your personal life and your professional life.
Okay. So, good question. Here's another one. It says, I haven't registered for the March meeting this year. Can I still attend the meeting in Boston? Because I should mention that I have just finished my PhD, and my supervisor is also attending the meeting, and so I'm finishing this. And it looks like, I don't know, perhaps the supervisor is presenting something about a published paper. So new PhD, and his advisor is presenting some of the stuff that the student did as a grad student. So he hasn't registered. Could he could still attend without registering yet, or?
Well, I know that there are some events, like networking events, that we don't check for badges, so you're welcome to come. And I believe there are some invited sessions and talks that are open to the public, so they won't be checking for badges. I would advise to email the meetings department, meetings@aps.org, to find out which events are open to the public, so you are not required to have a badge, and which events do require a badge.
Yeah, I would just like to add to that. For example, on Sunday, the career workshop that we're doing with Peter, this is Crystal, sorry everyone, that we're doing with Peter Fisk, it's kind of pre-meeting, and I've told folks that they can come. It's free. They don't have to have a badge for that. Like Deanna said, there are other events happening. Ooh. And also, you can still register on site. I mean, if you are interested in registering, you can register on site, absolutely, depending on what level of membership you are, then it'll be a different cost, but you absolutely can register on site. Thanks.
Do we have any more
Deanna?
questions?
Let's see. Oh, I'm sorry. That was a really strange question. I think can anyone can anyone attend the meeting? So can anyone pay to attend the meeting? I guess if your advisor didn't cover it and you have to pay out of pocket, can they pay? Can they still attend? I mean, do you have to have your university or institution, cover you?
Anyone can attend the meeting. If you're not an APS member, I believe the cost is significantly higher. But if you're an APS member, you're welcome to pay out of pocket to attend the meeting if your professor or company isn't willing to sponsor your registration to the meeting. There's no prerequisites for coming to our meetings and learning more about physics and what APS does.
Very good. Trying to see if I got most of them, because it looks like we're running pretty close to the end of the time. Okay, are there any final words, Deanna, before we close the webinar?
No final words from me, but if we didn't get to your question, people are welcome to email me at ratnikova@aps.org, or if you're going to listen to this later on as a recording, you're welcome to contact me, and I'd be gladly talk to you about networking.
Okay, great. Well, thank you, Deanna, so much for your time. Very informative presentation, and thank all the attendees for typing in questions and listening to the webinar. And I'll hand things back over to Crystal now.
Okay, well, thanks very much to both Kimberly and Deanna for a great presentation. I felt like that was really useful. There are a couple things I actually do want to talk about quickly. As Deanna mentioned, there are going to be a number of networking opportunities at the meetings. As she said, March and April, you can go to the events page. The career workshop with Peter Fisk, which is on Sunday of, I guess it's the 26th, it's at the March meeting. It's from 4 to 7. I believe it's in the Convention Center, room 158, but you should check that to make sure. Peter Fisk is a great, very celebrated science. He kind of gives advice on science careers, especially career planning, which is very, very helpful. A lot of people, need advice and strategies on how to kind of plan where they want to go, because that's important to know as you go into your networking activities. So that's one, and it's free, and as I mentioned, you don't need to be registered. So if you happen to be in the Boston area and you are interested in just kind of popping in, that is fine. For those who are registered for the meeting, we are also doing a student award and networking reception on Tuesday evening. So that will be a great opportunity, and actually we're inviting all of the employers who are participating in the job fair to come to that event. So you will have an opportunity to network with them. We have Intel, we have Quant Lab Financial, we have several national labs, and some of these representatives are going to be at this meeting, at this particular reception on Tuesday evening. So I do encourage you all to come to that, and again, test out your networking skills that you got thanks to this webinar. At the April meeting in Atlanta, Georgia, on the Friday night of the meeting, we're also having a career panel and networking reception. So again, an opportunity to meet with working physicists and network with them. All right, so this is all the time we have for the official webinar. We, again, apologize if there were questions we did not get to today. For those of you who are signing off now, we welcome you to follow up with the speakers by sending an email. You can send it to Deanna's email address that's on the screen, or webinars@aps.org, and we'll forward your questions to the speakers for comment. Slides of this presentation will be available on the main page for today's webinar, which you should be directed to at the end of the broadcast. And a recording of today's webinar will appear on the same webinar page. But we do ask that you please allow 24 hours for upload of that video. You will also receive a follow-up email from us containing a link to the recording of today's presentation. I would also, again, like to take a moment to remind you of a webinar coming up on Tuesday, February 21st on getting more out of APS meetings. It seems like most of you have been to meetings, but if any of you in the audience happen to be undergraduates or have never attended a meeting before and need tips and advice on navigating the meeting, knowing what to expect in the presentation rooms when you are presenting, and more information on opportunities at these meetings, please join myself and SPS staff as we provide great information on these very topics. For more info and to register, you can visit the webinar page, go to the main APS webinar page, and click on the link to Getting More Out of APS Meetings. And lastly, as everyone begins to sign off, in order to help APS continue to develop quality webinar presentations, please help us by taking a moment to complete the short survey as you exit the webinar today. And I guess that's all. Thanks.